How to travel by yourself. 20 things to know before you travel solo. I'm Chris, this is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, and entertaining. This video, it's part of a live stream, so for you fellow explorers that are on the live stream, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you all for the next hour. And in this video, I'm going to be talking all about tips for traveling solo. And I need to turn the volume down so I don't hear myself echoing. All right, now that that is done, so why am I doing this video? Well, Sarah Hopkins left a comment a week ago, and Sarah said, "Hi Chris, I've recently discovered your YouTube videos. I've become slightly obsessed with them. I've never traveled overseas. I'm in Australia. And I'm a bit nervous about travel and don't actually have anyone to travel with. Maybe you have a video on solo travel for women. Anyway, I feel more curious about travel after watching your videos, and maybe you will convince me that it is fairly safe to travel. My goal is to get to Scotland. If you have been there, I will check." So Sarah, this video is for you, and it's also out there for everybody else who's been curious about traveling solo, scared of traveling solo, or even solo travelers that travel but want some more tips to do it. Now, for those of you who watch Yellow Productions a lot, you might be thinking, "But Chris, solo travel, don't you always travel with OC Girl, your wife, and one of your pandas?" Well, Topher in the past. And the answer is yes, I often travel with OC Girl, but we often travel separately as well. And so what I also want to tell you in this video is that you don't need to put off your travel dreams just because you don't have anybody to travel with. Now more than ever, it's totally possible to travel solo and by yourself and have a great time. When you travel solo, you are in control. You can do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it. You don't have to wait for someone else or compromise on something that none of you actually want to do. But if you're traveling solo, some things can be harder. For example, you don't have a dining buddy, you don't have a line holder, and travel is more expensive because you're not splitting the costs. People are also concerned that solo travel can be less safe, but a lot of the points I'll go through in this video are how to make solo travel safer. And for those of you that are on the live stream, let me know what you think. Let me know what your tips are as well, because I learn a lot from you guys when I do these live streams, and hopefully you learn from each other as well. And if you're watching this on the archive, well, make sure to click the bell, turn on notifications so you can get in the next live stream next Monday night and hang out with some of your fellow travelers. All right, so with that, let's go on to tip number one. So the first thing to know before you're traveling solo is that you need to research. Research is really important when you're traveling by yourself. In particular, research what the safe parts of the city are. Also, what the no-go zones are. If you're going to downtown Los Angeles, you should know to avoid Skid Row. That's the place where you really don't want to go there pretty much any time of day. Every city is going to have these areas, and so it's much better if you know that ahead of time rather than walking into it and being like, "Oh my gosh, where is this?" Let's see. Moises agreed with one of my earlier points about hating to wait on a group whenever I'm ready to go. That is something that is a challenge if you've got a lot of people, for sure. All right, so let me go on to tip number two. The second thing to know before you travel solo is, and as part of the research, you need to do some research to learn and know how to get to your hotel. It's really important. So have a plan and stick to it. If you're flying in or you're taking a train in, know exactly how you're going to get from that point of entry to your place to the actual place that you're going to. You know, and if you're flying into the airport and you're going to the hotel, the bus might be the cheapest, but it might not be the safest. And also in airports and train stations, that's where lots of scam artists hang out. And so you always want to look like you know where you're going. Whether you do or not, you never want to look lost, because the scam artists always pick on the people at airports that look like they're lost, that look like they don't know where you're going. So when you're going through that airport, walk like you have some determination, even if that means you have to walk with some determination to the information desk to find out where you're going. Dr. Richmond said about Los Angeles, you should just not go to downtown Los Angeles at all. All right, that's certainly one point of view as well. And Wutai One Nostalgia says, Australia is very easy to travel alone. Byron Bay is perfect for solo travel. Great tip for people heading to Australia. All right, Thing to know number 3 is that you should plan to arrive at your destination in the daytime. And if you're doing long distance travel like trains, you should plan for those in the daytime too. Because things are easier and safer during general working hours. And you know what? There's probably a reason why that flight that you're looking at, if you're looking at a few flights, there's one that's $500 less because it gets in at midnight. Midnight to arrive in most places, not the best time to get there. Everything's closed. Public transportation's closed. You know, there's nobody at the front desk of the hotel. So plan to arrive in the daytime. I really like to plan my trips, plan my flights, plan my train trips so that I get to my destination right at check-in time. My other tip to you in relation to planning to arrive is don't drag your luggage around the city. Go to your hotel, drop off your luggage at the hotel, and then go around the city. Same thing in reverse. If you're checking out of the hotel, have the hotel hold your luggage and don't drag it around with you, because nothing screams more than I'm a tourist and rob me than if you're dragging big suitcases around your destination. The Uniplex says, excellent point about pickpockets. Thank you, Uniplex. Sun Lee says, I also love traveling solo, but could you please tell me what is the most fundamental thing when traveling alone? Sun, I think I have 20 fundamental things about traveling alone. Actually, I have 20, and then at the end, after 20, I have a whole thing I'm going to do just for women in particular, because that was something Sarah asked for. So when I'm done with 20, don't go away, because there's a whole nother, few set of things just focused for women that are solo travelers. Seth agrees with me about scams in airports, particularly in Asia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Geshmake, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but says downtown LA is a great place to travel to. Susan for travel says, I'm a solo traveler and from Australia too. I used to go to the US every year for about 8 years and always solo. My biggest recommendation is to always stay somewhere populated. So for New York, stay in Times Square, etc. I think that is a very good tip. Thank you, Susan. Kathy says she's loving the pandas in the background. She asks if I leave them all the time or do you put them away after the live stream. Generally, this place where I live stream right here in this room just kind of stays like this right here. All right, Dr. Richmond has a great point and says, don't let a stranger help you with your baggage. They'll want a big tip for doing so. That's if they haven't walked off with your belongings. That's a great tip, and I'm going to talk about that more in another number, but thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Richmond. All right, and Wu Taiwan Nostalgia agrees and says, yes, indeed, do not drag your luggage around. I've done this in college, and hopefully you are brighter and wiser now. And Brian says he's glad to be back on another live stream. Thanks, Brian. Paolo says, that's a problem for early arrival on long trips. What if the hotel won't keep your luggage before check-in time, even with a rental car? Not the best scenario. I'll say, Paolo, every hotel I've stayed at has held my luggage before check-in time. So I would say that's something you can check. Like, check with the hotel to make sure it's one that can hold your luggage. If not, find a different hotel, frankly. All right, let's go on to tip number 4. The fourth thing to know before you travel solo is, in addition to knowing how to get to your hotel, is to know how to get to your destination. So when you are traveling around the city or the destination, don't stand on street corners with large unfolded maps. Don't stand there with travel books. Don't hold your Rick Steves guide out in a Piccadilly Circus. That's just asking for trouble. If you do need to consult a map, go into a cafe, go into a store, go into some place where there's less eyes on you, because that will be much better for the people. Well, it'll be much better for you, because the people who are looking to pickpocket and thieve from tourists, they're looking for people that don't know where they're going and don't know where their maps. So research those things. And then number 5, in addition to knowing where you're going, you should also print maps and names of destinations. Yes, I said print on paper, not on your phone. You know, one of the biggest, and Son says, hey, can you tell me one of the most important things for traveling solo? It is not to only rely on your cell phone, which A, could get stolen, B, could get lost, C, could run out of batteries. If you are depending on this device as the only device to help you get to your destinations, it is just asking for trouble. So before you go, print out all the things that you can, and when I say the destinations, print them out, particularly in the local language. You know, if you speak English, chances are if you're on this live stream, that might be your primary language, though I know there's many people who aren't, but don't just print them out in your local language, print them out in the actual destination language, because if you're taking taxis or you're showing people on the street, they might not understand English, and if they're looking at that English map, that's a challenge. Many hotels have cards that'll have their name written in the local language. They often call them a Take Me To card, because you can show them to taxi drivers and then they will basically say, take me to my hotel, or the concierge could write them out to say, take me to this destination. And an example I'll say for how I came to think this was important once, I was in Seoul, South Korea, maybe 10 years ago, and I was staying at the Sheraton Walker Hill Hotel. The Sheraton Walker Hill. There is only one Sheraton in Seoul, and I was lost and I needed to get back to the hotel, and so I was going up to taxis asking them to take me to the Sheraton, and none of them knew what I was talking about. None of them understood Sheraton. And eventually I remembered I had one of the cards from the hotel, and then I showed the card to a taxi driver and he says, oh, Walker Hill, Walker Hill. They know it by Walker Hill, they don't know it by Sheraton. So having that local language helped me get back to the hotel in a pinch. Travis Family Travel says, we always Google map our routes before we leave and print out the maps. That is a great suggestion. That gives you the printed destinations and the maps. Kevin says, if you're by yourself, in most big cities, they have Lime and Uber electric scooters you can rent. It's faster to get to places and less encounters with people compared to walking. That's true, though we could have a whole separate conversation about what I think the safety of Lime and electric scooters are. They have a ton of them in San Diego, and I've seen a ton of them end up in ambulances, because people fall off of them. Corey says, always keep $40 in a separate pocket other than your money. You may need to pay off people and they won't see your wad. That's a good tip too. Seth has a really great tip here, particularly about Hawaii, that says, don't leave your belongings in cars. They have break-ins regularly. They do. Time for a Kiss asks if Europeans are more eager to meet Americans than other Europeans. I'm not really sure what that question means, because it was asking about Europeans and Europeans. Jake McShane asks, do you meet other travelers when you travel solo? Yes. I'm going to talk more about meeting people in some of the future numbers. Where am I going to talk about that? I'm going to talk about people and things like that probably as I get to 11, about how to make friends and things like that as you're traveling. And it's actually one of the things Eric brings up, which is hostels are a cool way to meet other travelers so you don't have to feel alone. All right. And Drew wants to know if I ever said, did you ever say happy birthday to Grandma Lee? I think I did, but in case I didn't, happy birthday to Grandma Lee. That's a comment from the live stream on how to travel cheap to Las Vegas. OC Girl points out that my uncle's cell phone crashed when he turned it on traveling to a foreign country. He couldn't fill out the customs card with the address of the hotel. That's a great example for if you have it printed out, then that is not an issue. So don't just rely on your cell phones. You can learn from OC Girl and I on our mistakes, or in this case, our family's mistakes. All right. Kevin says, also familiarize yourself with how the streets are laid out and named numbers. If all else fails, you can use that as a guide for which direction you're going. That's a great tip as well. It does help to familiarize yourself with the lay of the land, so you can sort of tell, oh, if I'm walking this way, or if I see this thing, or the street numbers are increasing, I'm probably going the wrong way. And Wu Taiwan says, Rome was tough on English speakers. Yeah, there's a lot of world cities that you would think English would be more prevalent in, but it's actually not true. It does help to have things in the local language. All right, let's go on to the sixth thing you need to know. The sixth thing you need to know is about taxis. We were talking about using taxis and cards, but if you're taking taxis in foreign locales, pick up taxis from legit places. If you're going to the airport, you're arriving at the airport, pick up taxis at the taxi rank. Never get a taxi from the person who just walks up to you in the airport and says, do you need a taxi? Pick it up in front of a major hotel. Have the hotel staff tell the taxi driver where you're going. This works most of the time. Now, You know, when OC Girl and I were in Bangkok, even this didn't work completely, and we still had to really be on guard with the taxis. We took a taxi from the airport taxi rank in Bangkok who didn't want to use the meter and wanted to charge us twice as much. We were staying at the JW Marriott in Bangkok, and the taxi drivers wouldn't want to turn on the meter. They'd want to charge us a fixed price. We got to the point where we would not leave the hotel until the hotel staff had talked to the taxi driver, told their destination, and the taxi driver had turned on the meter before we would actually set foot in the taxi. So that's something to think about if you're taking taxis. Uber and Lyft certainly make that a lot easier. So does Grab, because at least the destination is already set and you don't have to have a lot of conversation or arguments about where you're going in languages that you or the taxi driver are not very good at. So tip 7 is, if all that sounds too hard, is to consider car service. Hire a car and the driver for the day to take you around. OC Girl and I have done this in some destinations. We did it when we went to Thailand and we wanted to go to Ayutthaya, which is like this old region outside of Bangkok. We looked at the public transit options, we looked at the taxi options. They all looked pretty awful, and so we said, well, if we hire a car and driver, at least that car is going to be there. We don't have to worry so much. It's somebody that we trust, you know, because we're paying them a little bit more than a taxi. They meet you at your hotel, and so I actually think that's pretty nice and good for peace of mind. Seth says, be careful with taxi scams in the Philippines and Thailand. You should be careful in those places. And Jenny says, hi Chris, I finally made it to your live chat before it ended. Welcome, Jenny. And definitely, hopefully you can hang on a bit, because I will be showing off the pandas that you sent just a couple days ago. And thank you very much for those, Jenny. Joe asked if we would try solo cruising. You know what, OC Girl and I, we're not really big cruise heads. We've done like a cruise here and there. OC Girl gets seasick, so I definitely think she wouldn't do a solo cruise. I might do one if it was short enough, but we sort of like the independent travel perspectives. We like going our place, and cruising just seems to have too many people in one place for us. Travis Family Travel says in Hawaii you can rent a storage unit for about $30 from traveling place to place. What do you mean by that, Travis Family Travels? I'm not sure what you mean by a storage route for traveling place to place. Aaron says he tries to memorize key routes such as the airport to the hotel or hotel to nearby public transit. That's a good tip. Andrew is here and says, hello, I work for Hyatt, so I travel all the time alone. Google Translator and Google Maps is a lifesaver. Those are great tips, Andrew. And next week, the video I'm going to be doing next week is all about, either next week or the week after, one of these weeks coming up is all about the best mobile applications for traveling. And that was a question actually I asked a lot of you on Facebook and the YouTube community page. So I got a lot of great input. I've not forgotten that video. It is up and coming. Kathy says if you're going to if you're going to a country where you don't speak the language, maybe learn some phrases. Kanisha says if you're a first-time solo traveler, a country with readily available public transit is great. Vancouver was my first trip, and the bus and SkyTrain was a lifesaver. That's a great trip as well. Paulo says Buenos Aires Airport has a huge not legit taxi problem. The only legit company has always huge lines, and they charge expensive prepaid charge for any destination in the city, though. And TripHacks DC agrees about private tours. Maybe pricey, but can still be a great value. Thomas says, aloha, Chris and Tofa. Is it Tofi? Thanks for your many excellent videos and colorful personality. Mahalo. Thank you, Thomas. Very kind of you. All right. So let's go on to number 8. The 8th thing you need to know is about having international data when you travel. So I talked about these phones and these devices, and I think it really helps to have some sort of international data plan to get data on your cell phone. And I don't just mean Wi-Fi when you can get Wi-Fi, because Google Maps or Waze or some kind of mapping application can really be a lifesaver. So my recommendations is to turn on international roaming. Many providers will have kind of a prepaid plan that if you pay $20, $30, $40, you get some amount of data. Don't just turn it on in your phone and go for it, because like 5 megabytes might cost you $100. It's crazy insane. So figure out what some prepaid package is. You can also get prepaid SIM cards when you can go to certain destinations. There's companies that will mail them to you. Also, some countries do this, like Korea does this like Wi-Fi egg thing, which is like a Wi-Fi router that you can connect your phone, you can tether to that Wi-Fi router, and that will give you data service. But this is really great, particularly in taxis and the bus. Buses can be fairly hard in foreign destinations because the stops often aren't announced in English. They often aren't clear, but if you have Google Maps up, you can be following where you're going and be like, aha, now I know I'm near. I know I got on the right bus because it's going in the right direction. I know that the taxi driver is taking me to the right hotel. When OC Girl and I went to Korea, we were staying at the Shilla Stay Hotel for our last one, and the taxi driver for the first time took us to the wrong Shilla Stay Hotel, which if we didn't know A, what it looks like, B, where it was, C, where it was on the map, then we might have just ended up right there. But if you have Google Maps, you can just look and be like, no, the one I want is actually like 5 miles that way. Andrew has a recommendation for Google Fi service, which is cell phone service provided by Google. They give free international calling and unlimited international data for $50 a month. That's a pretty good deal if you're a frequent traveler. Atlas Dare says they're going to 17 countries in 6 months, starting in 3 weeks by themselves. Very good. Awesome. And Kathy says she's looking forward to the app Limestream, and she really meant live stream, so I believe you. Though Limestream might be interesting as well. Chili Pop says, what was the first country you traveled alone? The first country I traveled alone to was Japan. Green Suburban says, I'm 62 and feel safe solo in New York City because no matter what time of day or night, there's many people on the streets and subways. For probably a good portion of New York City, I don't know about all of it. There's some parts of New York City where I feel a little, you know. Henry asks if I've traveled to Latin America alone. I have never been to Latin America. The farthest south I've been in the American continent is actually Mexico, which is maybe kind of sad. I would like to get down there. Seth says, would you trust using your cell phone in a country like China? I would, because I'd want to use my cell phone. You can use a VPN app if you're particularly paranoid, which might not be a bad idea. You could also consider bringing one of your older phones as well. Paolo says Google Lens is a great app for solo travel. It translates the signs and writings real time. May not be 100% precise, but great help. Thank you for the tip, Paolo. And Bella says, particularly about those Wi-Fi eggs or routers, she says if you go to Japan, you can rent pocket Wi-Fi. It's portable Wi-Fi that goes with you anywhere, even in the train. Also, it helps to bring an extra battery. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, and often you can just pick these up right in the airport. That's my recommendation if you're doing that, because then that way you have data right as you get in the taxi or the train or how you do it, and you're not having to like schlep throughout everywhere to find the cell phone store. When OC Girl and I went to London, we bought a prepaid SIM card from one of the local cell phone providers, but in that case, I had looked and saw, okay, what's the company that I want? What's the best price? So that when we got to London, we could actually find that SIM card. Because if we just wandered around the airport, sure, we'd find a prepaid SIM card, but they wouldn't have been good ones, and they would have been expensive. All right, number 9. Okay, so we were talking about luggage. This is about appropriate luggage. So you should carry appropriate luggage when you travel solo, luggage that you can carry by yourself. If you're going solo, you are not traveling with anyone else, and so there is nobody to help you with your luggage other than you. And so make sure you can put it in the overhead bin, if you're going to put it in the overhead bin, that you can put it above you in the train, and that you can keep your eyes on it. If you've got so much stuff that some of it's in front of you and some of it's behind you, you're going to lose it, or someone is going to help liberate you of it. You don't want to look overwhelmed by your stuff. You should be particularly careful with backpacks, particularly if you're taking public transportation like subways. A, you don't want to be hitting people, and B, you don't want people opening up that backpack and helping themselves to your belongings. Also, It's best if you can put all of your luggage in one stack. So something like having a rolling suitcase and then a bag that stacks on top of it, and then maybe your backpack or purse or something like that that you can stack on top of that too, because then you can just put your hand on top, hold that thing, and you've got all of your stuff in one thing and nobody can take it away from you. It amazes me seeing people travel by themselves with all this stuff and they need help and they can't get where they're going. And they can't get there with their stuff either. Martin says, I only travel with my 300-pound trunk. Nice, nice. Hopefully you give people tips for that. Travis wants to know if I have any trips for Puerto Rico. I've never been there, Travis. I wish you the best. Let me know how it was. And Who's That Girl says, I keep it simple, carry on only. That is simple indeed. That's the best way to travel if you can carry on all of your stuff. So the next one about all of your stuff, number 10, is to keep your belongings in sight. Ideally in your hand. When you're walking around and you're around the city, don't leave anything unattended. Or even attended but out of sight. Particularly your cell phone. Don't be in an outside cafe and place your cell phone on the table. Don't be on the subway and place it in the seat next to you or on the bus. Even in the taxi, don't set your cell phone down on the seat next to you. Why? In the taxi, you'll be by yourself. There won't be anyone there, so they're not going to steal it, but you very well may forget it there. Keep your stuff in the bags, in your hand. Don't set it down. And the last note I want to make about cell phones, you should be aware of grab and runs. Because now that we use Google Maps or things like that, and we're trying to figure out where we're going, if we're standing here with our head buried in our phone, it's really popular in a lot of places now for these grab and runs where people will be on a moped, they'll have someone on the back of the moped, they'll mount the sidewalk, and they'll come by, grab your phone. By the time you've looked up, they're gone. Hopefully you'd have printed maps and all those things that we talked about before. But don't stand on the corner buried in your phone. If you're going to do that, stand back by a wall. Again, look in a cafe. Go some places that you're not obviously looking lost and holding your phone where people can take it. Adventure Mate says, related to suitcases, one thing that always helps for smaller baggages are the packs of 6 packing cubes for organizations. That's a great tip, Adventure Mate. If you want more tips about how to pack, I think I did a live stream maybe a month ago all about packing tips. So you can check that out. It's in my playlist for packing down below. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention today, and in every live stream, I always give away something. Today, I'll be giving out a Yellow Productions t-shirt. If you want to get in on the Yellow Productions t-shirt, you need to go over here to the our Instagram page for the Enchanted Production Studio. I'm trying to be like a weather person and look at this as I talk about this. A lot of people have asked us if we can do things more focused on food. And so we've actually created an Instagram page just focused on food. It's called Enchanted Production Studio. It's got all the food, neat places we eat. OC Girl takes these cool pictures, and so we post them up here. So if you want to stay plugged into what we eat, head over to Instagram, check out Enchanted_Production_Studio. The link's in the description as well. And I will be asking my question to win this shirt about something that is on that page. So if you want to win this, you got to know what is over there. Junior Mint asks, where have you traveled solo? So many places, and the list would be way too long for this video, but just some examples: Japan, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, across Europe, so across the US. I've driven cross country across the US by myself. I've gone a lot of places by myself solo. QB3FI says, to prevent pickpockets, I cut off the zippers off my travel backpack. That's an interesting one. I guess that does make it hard for people to just pull on that. Adventure Mate uses a anti-theft backpack, even for things like their wallet. That's a good tip, though, as you might have found out in my London video, where someone actually swiped my whole camera bag, which was an anti-theft bag. I was actually really happy that I had my wallet in my front pocket and my phone in my cargo pocket of my pants, so the two things I really needed didn't get swiped. All right, and hi to Richie from Temecula Wine Country. Hi, Richie. All right, let's go on to number 11. The 11th thing to know is Okay, so let me preface 11 before I get into it. So all those things we talked about, those are kind of like things to stay safe, things to have a good trip, things to know where you're going. Let's talk about what about making friends. One of the things that people are often concerned about traveling solo is that they'll be lonely, that it won't be much fun. And so one great way to meet people if you're traveling by yourself is to stay in bed and breakfasts. Because if you're staying at some big international hotel, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, people aren't very chatty or friendly in these big business hotels, but bed and breakfasts, they're much smaller, there's fewer guests, people are friendlier, they have their guard down. You'll typically see other guests at breakfast, and you'll have built-in hosts to talk to, because part of a bed and breakfast is generally the hosts of the bed and breakfast prepare you breakfast, they ask where you're going, so that could be a great way to like connect up with some of the people who are staying there, maybe seeing if they want to do some activities together. So that's a great way to do it. There was a comment earlier about staying in hostels. OC Girl and I, we are not hostel people, but many people do like hostels because they like that community experience. I think it was Kathy earlier who said she traveled by herself on a Kontiki tour. Kontiki is this tour company that does tours specifically for young people, has great ways to get them together and to meet friends, so you can travel solo, but yet you can meet a lot of people at the same time. I think this can be a double-edged sword, that there are some people who like to travel solo because they like to be by themselves. There's people who don't want to travel solo because they don't want to be by themselves, and so in that case, then you'll find these tips interesting. Junior says, do you prefer solo versus family travel? I like both, honestly. I mean, certainly, I think family travels, it's like it's better. Like if you can travel with family, it's more fun to share the trip with other people, but if it's not an option, then you shouldn't feel limited. Also, I think it's possible to travel as a family and then do solo things on certain days to be like, okay, we're all going to do this on day one, but then we're all going to go our separate ways on day two. And so in that case, a lot of these solo things apply to that. Kathy says, I can't go to Instagram and watch your live stream at the same time. Okay, well, I guess you can do that later. Let's see. Jordan says, can you do a Vegas Q&A next, please? I will take that under consideration. Goddess says, OMG, the food on your Instagram looks so good. Thank you, Goddess. We appreciate it. Tanya's, OC Girl's really taken up the habit of food photography. Goddess says, I think if you're traveling alone, stay in a hostel to meet people. And that's a great tip. Seth says, one way to get people to be chatty and friendly is to have status. So it is true, if you are staying at a big hotel, the host will be friendlier if you have status. So now let me talk about if you are staying at, actually I'll get to that in a second because there's a few more comments about Airbnbs. Kathy said, we stayed in a lovely B&B in New Zealand and the hosts were lovely and friendly. Wu Taiwan says New Zealand has very small places that are close with others, lots of conversation. Let's see, Okay. And Jake asks if I like to eat at fancy restaurants when I travel alone. I'm going to get to eating at restaurants in 14. Okay, so number 12. 12, chat with the hotel concierge. So if you're staying at a big hotel, a Marriott, a Hyatt, this and that, I will, even if I know what to do and I have a plan and I'm like, these are all the things I'm going to do, I go to the hotel concierge when I check in, or I go to the hotel concierge when I'm going out for the day, and I ask them, hey, what do you recommend? What should I do around here? And it's usually pretty neat, and I get a lot of really interesting tips about what to do or what to see. I just say to them, I've never been here before. What do you recommend? The best concierges will pull out maps and say, hey, you should go here, you should walk here, you should do this, you should see these things. It's often a lot of great local insight that you won't get any other way. It's also a great way to like just kind of get connected in the day with somebody, to like bounce your idea off of them, to be like, hey, and if you're planning on doing something else, say like, okay, well, you recommend this, but what about this? They might go, don't do that, don't go there. It's a good way to figure out maybe some of those no-go zones. When I was in Marseille, France, I was traveling by myself. I was in the south of France. And I was staying in Marseille, and I checked into this Holiday Inn that was by the train station. And I got there at night. I mean, this is another one of these this is a night travel story. I got there at night. I got there at like 8 o'clock and I was hungry and I wanted to get something to eat. And I asked the hotel staff, I'm like, hey, where's a good place to go for a walk around here and get something to eat? And they took out a map and they said, okay, well, you're staying here and it's kind of the center of the city. And so our recommendation from the hotel, walk down this street and turn right on this street and go to the harbor. Do not walk anywhere else. You should only walk on these 2 streets. Oh, that's good to know. And let me tell you, all the other streets that were off those 2 major streets looked a bit shady. So that was a good tip. Time for a Kiss says, have you made Thanksgiving food for a European? What do they think of it? I'm not much of a cook. We actually usually go out to eat for Thanksgiving. So, but I will say I'm half Czech from the Czech Republic, so I don't know. I think they would like it. Meat, potatoes, all that stuff. That's very kind of European food. I don't think people would find that weird. Wu Taiwan asks, how do I get to travel so much? You know, I answered that in my frequently asked questions video. And so in the interest of time for this one, I'll just direct you to that. If you search for Yellow Productions FAQ, there'll be a whole answer on how I get to travel so much. Zachary says, I also love to ask the concierge for local shops. I found that local shop owners do a great job of promoting other local shops. My best vacation finds are from local shops and restaurants. That's a great tip. And Moises also said, great tip. Thank you, Moises. Carmen suggests really what tip number 13 is. So that's excellent. Tip number 13 is to take group walking tours. So you don't have to stay in a hostel and you don't have to take a big group tour. You don't have to take a tour bus. Actually, my tip is slightly different than Carmen's. Carmen says do a small group tour. My tip is to do daily walking tours. Most big touristy cities, London, New York, Tokyo, Stockholm, you name it, if it's a touristy city, there will likely be walking tours that meet in the city center. I don't mean tours that pick you up from your hotel. I mean tours that, meet at 10 a.m. at this major attraction and walk around for 2 to 3 hours. A lot of people who go on those kinds of tours will be solo people as well because hey, they got nothing else to do, and it's a great way when you're with people for those 2 to 3 hours to meet some people. It's a great way to meet a local, understand more about the local culture. So much better than just walking around and looking at a book and trying to listen to an audio guide. Some of the best experiences I've had traveling solo, and OC Grill as well, and we typically do this when we travel solo, is we find some sort of local walking tour to take us on, and then maybe when we go back to that destination with each other, then we can take ourselves on the walking tour, but that's pretty fun. Trip Hacks DC says, I've had many solo travelers on my group walking tours make friends with each other. Love to see it. And by the way, if any of you are going to DC, Trip Hacks DC has a great channel all about DC tips. Probably does walking tours there too. So if I'm ever in DC, Trip Hacks DC, I should go on one of your walking tours. But related to making friends, that's a great way to also say things like, hey, if you're doing it for kind of a lunch thing, you could make friends, be like, hey, do you guys have any plans for dinner? Or do you have any plans for tomorrow, right? It's a great way to make some travel buddies for the next couple days that you're in that destination. MT agrees and says daily walking tours are awesome. I did one in Seville. Seth says, I made him hungry for In-N-Out, obviously because I was drinking my drink since I'm unable to talk for an hour straight without drinking. The Uniplex says, Japan is a great place for the solo woman traveler. I agree with you, other than at rush hour and trains, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Carmen said, yes, walking tours, they're great. I did have to do a bus once when I hurt my foot, so no shame in that. There is no shame in a bus tour. We've been on bus tours as well. I don't love them as much as walking around. Kathy says we did a walking tour around Central Park in New York City. It was great. All right, so now let's talk about eating. Jake McShane asked about this, so it's okay to dine out solo. Let's just get that out there right now. There's a lot of people who say, I can't go to high-end restaurants, I can't go to fancy restaurants by myself, I'd be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed about dining solo. I do a lot of travel for my work solo, and so I eat at a lot of restaurants by myself. I do a lot of fun travel solo, and being by myself won't stop me from eating at a good restaurant. My recommendation, certainly like a preference, I'll prefer fast casual restaurants, things I can order to counter, things I don't have to be waited on. But when I'm in places like Hong Kong and there's like a really great roast goose restaurant or a Peking duck restaurant or dim sum restaurant and you have to sit down, I will sit down because I want that food. Now, I might try to get there at like non-busy actually, I always try to get there at non-busy times because I don't want to wait, because it's just really boring to sit around by yourself and wait. But bring your travel book, bring your phone. Do some research for tomorrow's itinerary while you're waiting your food or you're waiting for your table service. Another suggestion I have for you is if you want to eat out and you're afraid of eating by yourself, is join a foodie tour. These are becoming more popular places. They're food tours that'll take you through various restaurants, much like a walking tour. It's a great way to try a lot of different restaurants and then try it with a group. And I bet the people who are on your foodie tour for lunch, particularly if you go on a lunch one, would love to join you for dinner as well. Richie says, as if I've ever been to the Andes. I've never been to the Andes. Time for a Kiss says, what 3 movies, books, people, YouTube channel inspires you to travel? Wow, that's a lot of different things. I'll just answer one of them about my favorite travel movie is Lost in Translation with Bill Murray in Tokyo, Japan. That's my favorite travel movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. SoCal Seth says, I loved going to ramen shops in Tokyo solo. Some of my best meals. Absolutely. Japan is a place that really understand people traveling by themselves. Trip Hacks DC says, locals are often happy to chat with solo travelers at restaurants as long as you have an open mind and don't act like a total tourist. That's a good point. Moises says, it's better to pay for one great meal than 2. That's right. If it's a really expensive restaurant, way cheaper if it's just by yourself. Martin says, I like to latch on to couples or families. I don't talk, though, because I'm shy. It's very awkward. How do you latch on to them? What do you mean by that, Martin? Paolo says, bar hopping can be a no-go if you're solo in a foreign country. I've been left out once, being the only tourist from abroad and going back to the hotel 3 a.m. in the middle of it. Well, Alexis made it. Welcome, Alexis. Zachary Smith says, when I eat out traveling alone, if it is a sit-down restaurant, I only go to ones that have a sit-down bar. I won't sit at the table myself. That's interesting. Bars are certainly easy to go to. I will say I sit down at tables by myself all the time. All the time. Okay, let's go on to number 15. All right, so this tip is about this is about bar hopping, being out at night. So I mentioned earlier, hey, get plays in the day, and people say, well, Chris, is it safe to go solo at night? Most big destinations it is, as long as you follow kind of a few rules of thumb. One, stay in well-lit areas with lots of people. We had a comment earlier that somebody really liked New York City because it's busy and there's lots of people. So stay in the well-lit areas with lots of people. If it looks sketchy, it probably is, so then avoid it. Figure out the time in your destination when most of the shops and restaurants close, and that's a great time to get back to your hotel. Actually, get back to your hotel before everything closes. Get back to your hotel before the streets are a ghost town. If you're at a particularly sketchy destination, then go to sleep early and wake up early. Early morning hours are generally much safer than late night hours, and my mom always told me, Chris, nothing good happens after midnight, and I believe it. And so I'm generally back in the hotel well before midnight. Get some sleep, get an early breakfast, and head out. When I've been in Hawaii by myself, actually, when I'm in a lot of destinations by myself, I'm often the first person at breakfast. Like if breakfast opens 6 a.m., that's when I'm there. I'm like, all right, breakfast, woo. Aaron says I like to watch people at restaurants. That's an interesting activity as well. Masked Oof asks how many countries I've been to. About 30 is my guess at this point. All right, 16. Ask for help. If you really don't know where you are and you're really lost, ask somebody for help. Maybe not somebody randomly on the street, but go into a shop, go into a restaurant, ask them for help. There's no extra points for being self-sufficient because you're by yourself, and so therefore you've got nobody to embarrass yourself in front of. Suyun asks if I've been to Seoul. I sure have. I've probably got 10, 15 videos on Seoul. If you search for Yellow Production Seoul, you'll find a whole bunch of videos on Seoul. I've been to Seoul 3 times. Actually, OC Girl and I, we were recently in Seoul. Maybe 5 months ago, we went with the Korean tourism agency on like a YouTuber tour. Seoul, we went to Busan, we stayed at a Korean temple. It was a really fun experience, and we ate lots of kimchi. I have never been to the Fuji-Q amusement park. And Aaron says, it goes without saying, but you should really look like you know where you're going and belong if you were outside after dark. Martin Taylor says, I'm usually not scared late at night because I carry nunchucks from the local shops. That's a good tip, Martin. All right. So before I go on to tip number 17, I want to do a little interlude to share some of the Tophers that have come in recently. And there are, what have I got here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 Topher submissions that I'm going to share with you all today. And the first Topher submission that we're going to take a look at right here, this is Topher submission number 14 right here. This guy, this panda comes from the World Wildlife Federation. It came in a package that said World Wildlife Federation and a note that said this panda is yours courtesy of a donation from AH. So AH, whoever you are, thank you very much for this lovely panda. He's very soft. And that goes to a good cause because it goes to helping out pandas for the World Wildlife Fund. All right, Topher candidate number 15. This little guy right here with his own bamboo comes from Ben from the Travel Man podcast all the way from the land down under in Australia. So he would probably say to you, good day, mate, right there. And I think he is pretty cute, and he is certainly travel size as well. And he is the envy of all of the other pandas around here because he's eaten all the time. So thank you very much, Ben. Topher candidate number 16 right here comes from Bella in San Diego, and this one is Mioni, and inside on this little label there's something here that says the black and white panda is a rare bear with a global fan base. Well, I think Topher had a global fan base. There's many of you from around the world, and so thank you very much, Bella, for this panda. Panda number 16. Okay, let's go on to number 17. These pandas come in from all around the world, and it truly amazes me. And everybody who sent pandas, not just the people who sent them today, but everybody who sent the previous pandas back here, thank you very much. It means a lot to me. It truly does. Right here we have panda number 17 from Switzerland. This is another travel-sized panda. This panda is from Sue in Switzerland, Sue and family. He comes with a custom yellow shirt that has the Yellow Productions Y on it right there. Sue is pretty creative in getting that on his shirt. And then it's also got Yellow Productions emblazoned on the back. And in this shirt, there's even a hole cut out in this shirt for the little tail. That is pretty cute. So thank you, Sue in Switzerland. And now we have Topher candidate number 18, which is actually 3 things. So we have panda here. This is from Jenny in San Diego. I think Jenny is on the live stream. So Jenny, thank you very much. Jenny also submitted Topher candidate number 1, which is you can see him back there. He's the one holding the heart. So it makes sense that this one is going to be holding a pumpkin for Halloween. Pretty cute. It also comes with a panda neck pillow. So next time I'm on an airplane, I can have that. And Topher candidate 18 also came with a panda eye shade. So when I'm trying to go to sleep on the airplane next time, I can go to sleep like this. And I'm sure everybody's going to leave me alone at this point because they'll be like, that guy is so crazy, because they won't be in the know. But Jenny, this is really cute. I got big smiles out of all these things. So thank you very much. And there will be more pandas to share with you all on the next live stream. People have said, hey Chris, can I see all the various pandas that you have? Well, if you want to see all the pandas, then you can follow my Instagram page, not our food one. It's really hard to be a weather person, but right here, if you go to my Instagram page, it's Yellow Productions with 2 W's. Then every Topher candidate, I posted their picture up there. So you can go ahead and check that out. And then just a reminder, if you want to win the Yellow Productions shirt, then you need to follow our food page, Enchanted Production Studio. There's also links to these in the description or in the pinned comment below. So my question in just a few minutes is going to be about some picture on that page. Okay, let's go on to number 17. Okay, tip number 17. Photos. So, if you are by yourself and you want someone to take photos of you, and you need to ask somebody, well, some things that you should think about, like who should you ask to take a photo of you? Because you want to ask somebody who's not going to run away with your camera. Yes, people run away with your camera. So, my recommendation and what OC Girl and I typically do, we typically ask a couple. It's best if they have a baby and a baby stroller. Why? Because if they have a baby and a baby stroller, they are likely not going to run away with your camera because it's hard to run with that baby stroller. Or ask somebody else that has a big camera around their neck, because if they've got a big camera, they're probably not looking to steal your camera, because your camera is probably worth less than theirs. OC Girl and I, we get asked a lot to take pictures, because you can imagine we're walking around with some pretty big cameras, and so I think people feel pretty safe that we're not going to run away with their camera. When you are asking people to take your picture, my recommendation is not to give them your cell phone. If they run away with your cell phone, that sucks and you're hosed. So my recommendation is to bring a point and shoot camera. You can buy point and shoot cameras for a couple $100. They take pictures as good as your cell phone, and just have that to hand to people to take your pictures. Every day you get back to your hotel, download those photos to your computer so that if somebody does run off with it, you'll still have the previous day's pictures from the rest of the trip. And also when you're walking around, keep the camera in a bag, not around your neck, so that you don't have something that says rob me. The Uniplex, tell me, how did somebody get robbed in Russia? Did they run off with the camera? Is that what happened? And Jenny says hi. Hi, Jenny. Did you? Hopefully you saw your panda. Thank you for the panda. Hopefully you didn't go away and come back, but maybe you did. But in case you did and you want to look in the archive, that was a couple minutes ago. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jenny. And I was looking at Kathy's comment that I was going to read next. Kathy says, another great way to take pictures is to take a selfie stick. That is a good tip. And Kathy says, her son Ben says I should call them the army of pandas. All right, I will take that under consideration for the panda army. All right. So the Uniplex says, doing that, the guy asked him for money before he would give it back $100 US. Yeah, that is pretty lame. So the selfie stick is, that's even easier, right? All right, we'll go to number 18, but the selfie stick often might not get the exact picture that you want. So if you bring a camera that's worth less, you can be like, fine, you can just have the camera. It's not worth anything anyway. All right, number 18. Be a skeptic of people that are too helpful, particularly unsolicited help on the sidewalk or in the train station. That's not the kind of help that you want. And generally, the nicest people don't just hang around and offer help. Usually, those are scam artists. Tip number 19. Share your itinerary with others. In this world of technology, it's easier than ever to share your itinerary with people. Stay in touch with family and friends on Facebook, Instagram, by email. Let them know where you're going. As OC Girl and I were preparing these notes, this was one that she particularly said, because she's probably listened to too many crime podcasts about, something happens and people don't even know where they are. So let your friends know where you're going so that if something does go wrong, they know where to start looking. OC Girl and I, we like this app called Life 360, which is a great way to where we can see where each other is, right? It's like a real-time like location app. And apparently a lot of people, Hungry and Alexis, like the Panda Army. All right, I love it. Panda Army. All right, 20. So this is about drinking. We talked about being outside, but let's talk about drinking. Now, this is a challenge if you're going by yourself. And so my biggest tip here, if you're going to be out and you're imbibing in alcoholic beverages, is don't get wasted by yourself. That's right, don't get wasted by yourself. And ladies, watch your drinks. If you are getting alcoholic drinks, don't drink anything that you didn't get from the bar yourself. You never know what somebody slipped in it, so never drink anything that you have taken your eyes off of. So if you want to drink something, go to the bar, order yourself, get it yourself, keep it in your hand in front of you until you've drank the whole thing, then you can get rid of it. Don't leave it on the table, go to the bathroom, look away. That's just a recipe for disaster. All right, so now I want to ask the question, and I've got one more tip, right? This wasn't just 20, it's actually 21, because I got a whole thing about just for women, because Sarah, who asked this question at the beginning, said, in particular, do you have some tips for solo travel for women? And so I'm going to wrap up with those. And some of them will apply to guys, too. But my question to win a Yellow Productions t-shirt shipped anywhere in the world is on our Enchanted Production Studio Instagram, which is our new Instagram just focused on food, where the link's in the description or in the pinned comment, is what? The most recent picture, what food item is that of? The first person that names the food item wins a Yellow Productions t-shirt shipped anywhere. So go ahead and answer that question, and it's about a 30-second delay from when I talk and I see your comment, so I'm going to go on to these tips for women and then come back to announce the winner. So, tip number 21, which is for women. First of all, OC Girl, just wanted to point out that we travel a lot together, but we also travel solo. And in addition to traveling solo, like, it's possible, right? Some people say, well, I'm a woman, I can't travel by myself, and OC Girl wants to know you absolutely can. By the way, Moises is the winner. He said baklava, so thank you very much, Moises. You win a Yellow Productions t-shirt. Send me a Facebook message or send me an email. Let me know where you want me to send it to and what size. You will get your Yellow Productions. I'll get your Yellow Productions t-shirt sent out post haste. Oh, and if you email it, it's chris@yellow.net with 2 W's. Well done, Moises. There were also a few others of you that gave the right answers. Brian was right. Robert was right. Goddess was right. But the good news is Moises has said he's already won twice, and so he says give it to the next person. Moises is very kind. So, Brian Johnson Productions, you are the winner. So Brian, you can thank Moises for your Yellow Productions t-shirt. Send it to the ways I just told you to send it, to give me your address and your size. It'll be on its way to you. All right, so final tips for ladies is, so if you're out and about and you're chatting with new friends, it's probably not a good idea to share too loudly that you're traveling alone. You can totally be traveling with your husband, you can totally be traveling with your boyfriend, you can totally be traveling with your family, even if you're not, but you can tell them you are. You can say, look, I'm meeting my parents here any minute now, I've got to go. Don't share what hotel you're staying in. That's a recipe for stalkers. People don't need to know what hotel you're staying in. When you're out and about or when you're planning to go to a destination, take a look at what the locals are wearing and try to dress similarly to avoid calling attention to yourself. We can totally have a conversation about you should be free to wear whatever you want to. Unfortunately, the world is not as civilized as maybe all the countries that we live in, and maybe not everybody's enlightened, and there are some countries in the world that require women to dress a certain way or look a certain way. So if that's the case, make sure you adhere to those particular etiquette items in the countries you're going to. Now, if you think you're being followed, my suggestion is to not try and run away and not try to confront the person, but to go into a store, go into a restaurant, go into a hotel, go into a police station, go into one of those places, chat up the front desk staff, chat up the bartenders. You could even tell them you're being followed, so you just want to talk to them for a little while. I'm sure they will understand. Wait until that person leaves, or ask the staff at that place to call you a taxi. I'm sure they will help you out of this situation. There was actually a bar that I was recently in that had a sign in the bathroom that was directed to women, and it said, If you are on a date that's not working out or you're uncomfortable, go up to the bartender and ask for Angela. If you ask at the bartender for Angela, we will know things aren't going well and we will help you discreetly get out of the situation. Most places that are evening hangouts understand that this is a problem, and so they will help people with it. Now, if you're in a situation that's getting sketchy, leave before it is sketchy. Learn to say no in the local language and be willing to be forceful with it. Now, if it makes you feel better to carry some sort of self-defense mechanism, we heard somebody say they walk around with nunchucks from one of their local stores, do that. You can carry around pepper spray, you can carry around nunchucks. Just make sure that it's legal where you're going to, or is legal on your mode of transport if you're going to take it with you in your transport. There was a comment about how Japan is a really great place to travel with a woman. It was with a woman. Oh, and by the way, the Uniplex says, why were you in the ladies' bathroom? I was not in the ladies' bathroom. It was a bar that had unisex bathrooms, so all of the bathrooms were men's and women's bathrooms. So that's obviously why they had this message towards women in the bathroom that I was in. Thank you for the benefit of the doubt. And Nairlock says, all the way from Oz, great tips on traveling as a single lady, very helpful tips. Japan was so safe, but I know it's not safe in other countries. I think that the place, the biggest concern in Japan is riding the subway at busy rush hour times. Japanese men can be a little gropey because there's so many people in there, and so actually a lot of Japanese trains have cars for women only during rush hour. So if you are in Japan, like Tokyo during rush hour, look on the platforms for these pink areas and you can actually ride the cars that are for women only. My other suggestion for all public transit is to wait in areas with cameras. And if you wait in areas with cameras, right, a lot of stations will have like little places marked on it that'll say like, this is the nighttime self-waiting area, so that, right, it's not like the corner in the dark place, right? Like, this is the place where like people are watching you. Goddess says, hey, what's that awesome place that says ask for Angela? It was in Charleston, South Carolina. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but if you want to send me a message or an email, I will let you know what the name of it is. And so the final message for women, and this comes from OC Girl directly, is she says, don't let all of this discourage you. Traveling solo may seem like no fun at first because there's like all this stuff you have to do, but she and I are sure that you'll find plenty of ways to enjoy yourself, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, and OC Girl guarantees it, or your money back on this video. So the next live stream is going to be Monday, November 25th. That is 1 week from today. And if you missed my last live stream, you can find the link in the description below for all my previous live streams. If you didn't check out that food Instagram page that I put there, it's Enchanted Production Studio. That's all of our food things that we're posting up. There's also a link in the description below. And if you want to see all of the Tophers in one place, they're right there. I'll have more Tophers coming next week. And with that, I want to thank all of you who joined into this live stream and all of the people that are watching the archive that made it here to the end. It is for all of you that I do all of this, and all of the pandas that everybody's sending that's part of the Panda Army are truly making my day. So with that, I'm going to say keep on traveling as usual. I won't say goodbye because I'm going to see you all in the next video.